Few people challenge a legacy industry from the outside. Jen Pelka did exactly that. She did not start in vineyards. She started in a Michelin-level hospitality, staging at Restaurant Danielle, where she learned how unforgettable experiences are crafted through precision, empathy, and attention. She took that energy into the Riddler, her champagne bars in San Francisco and New York, backed entirely by women investors. And night after night, something stood out. Women were seeking wines made by women, and there was no brand carrying that torch. Most people would have left that as a simple observation, but she turned that into a mission. Jen, alongside with her brother and co-founder Zach, stepped into one of the oldest, most tradition-bound categories in the world and launched Unfem Wines, a sparkling wine brand built around women winemakers, women-led vineyards, and donations to women's causes with every bottle. They position sparkling wine as an everyday celebration, put it in cans to make it accessible, and built a women-powered supply chain from the ground up. The result? One of the fastest growing sparkling wine brands in the country, with over 6 million cans expected to be enjoyed this year alone. And here's what I love. Jen's approach to business is deeply rooted in culture and hospitality. Whether she's building a bar, a brand, or an experience, she leads with celebration and connection. And Jen Pelka didn't just create a wine company. She stepped into the arena, took on a legacy industry, and built a movement grounded in purpose, courage, and the belief that celebration should belong to everyone. Jen, welcome to Legends of the Arena. Great to have you.
Thank you. Thank you. So great to be here.
Awesome to have you.
In the arena.
That's right.
It's the only place to be.
The only place to be, clearly, as your story tells. So tell us, give us the origin, just how did this all come to be? Because it's an interesting choice. Like, it is difficult, beyond difficult, right? For a ton of reasons. But like, how the heck did you get here?
Yeah, I mean, you did such a great job summarizing a lot of the history, but I have just always loved champagne and sparkling wines, just as a consumer, as a person who, from my very young days of drinking in my early 20s, living in New York, going to all of the cool Keith McNally restaurants like Balthazar and Schiller's and Pastis. And, I was a regular at Schiller's when it existed. And I would walk in and the bartenders would clear space for me and my girlfriends. And they'd plop down a bottle of Prosecco, which they would comp. And then we would, leave them a $50 tip. And I always felt like those moments and those nights were so magical, and we felt so cool and like we were having so much fun. And I've always thought of sparkling wine in particular as the kind of thing that can really turn any day into a real celebration. And so I really loved champagne and sparkling wines. And I learned about riddling, which is a step of the champagne making process, when at the time I was working at the shopping site, the Gilt Group, which I was running the food and beverage vertical for Gilt Taste is what it was called at the time. And I was at a wine tasting for Veuve Clicquot. And they told the story of the widow Clicquot, the woman who really changed the face of not only champagne, but wine historically. And part of the steps that she invented was called riddling. So at the time, champagnes were naturally a very cloudy beverage. All of the fermentation happens in the bottle. So there's all this sediment, almost like kombucha. And she was like, nobody's going to buy this. We've got to figure out a way to get the sediment out. And so she took a door, put it on its side and drilled holes in it, and then took the bottles, turns them upside down by the neck, and every day would turn them so that the sediment would go down to the bottom. That's called riddling, or remoulage in French. And it's still a process that's used today. They freeze the neck with typically with like dry ice, and then that little puck shoots out, and then that's when they put the cork back in. And so I learned about riddling, as invented by the widow Clicquot. And I said to my colleague, I said, well, one day I'm going to open a champagne bar called the Riddler. And then, I don't know, 10 years later, I was living in San Francisco and saw this beautiful corner location. I was eating at the sushi restaurant across the street with my husband. And I said, oh my God, that's got to be the Riddler. That's the one. And so it took a couple years to get access to that lease. But once I had my eye on that space, I knew that I had to do it there. And so that was the first location
Love
that we
that.
opened. Then I've always loved New York. I lived in New York for about 10 years before I lived in San Francisco. My husband and I were in New York actually looking for real estate for his restaurant group. He owns a group of Greek restaurants in San Francisco called Suvla. And he has 6 in the Bay Area, and he was looking for one space in New York. And he stumbled on this little corner in the West Village on the corner of West 4th and Bank between like Cafe Cluny and St. Ambrose, that beautiful stretch of
Yeah,
the
sure.
West Village tucked away. And he said, oh my God, Jen, I was walking around the West Village today and I found your New York location. And so went, looked at it, boom, got it. Unfortunately, those spaces were opened relatively shortly before COVID. Our San Francisco place had a little bit of a longer run. We opened in 2017, but we opened our New York location at the end of 2019. So truly the worst time to open.
Wow.
But both places were incredibly popular, really beloved, and really honestly, not a day goes by when people don't ask me when we're going to reopen. So I'm always still looking for real estate. But what we found was that, as you mentioned, a lot of our guests who had come in were women who were looking to celebrate, a special moment in their lives, but also just like 2 ladies getting together to have a glass of wine.
Sure.
And we started doing menu features because we had these champagne lists that were hundreds of champagnes by the bottle and hard to pronounce names, a little esoteric. And so we started doing these different features like Blanc de Blanc champagnes or extra brut champagnes, and no one knew what any of that meant. And we started doing women-made wines, and they would outsell everything else. And that
Love
was
it.
a real light bulb moment of people saying, like, how can I know if a wine is made by a woman if I'm at a retail shop or if I'm at a restaurant? And so I was like, we should build this brand. And I started doing the wines in collaboration with women whose wines that we already loved and already sold on our list. So
Yeah.
our first was a champagne producer, 5th generation organic grower producer from Champagne, who my brother worked harvest with and who we spent a lot of time with. She would come to the Riddler all the time when she was in New York or San Francisco. And we did a white labeled collab with her, basically. Then we started noticing our top selling wines were always whatever was the most affordable, sparkling rosé by the glass. And so I found a great friend in California, Samantha Sheehan, who makes awesome sparkling rosés, and we did a rosé with her. And so we thought that this brand was really going to be our house wines at the Riddler. And our plan was actually to have many Riddlers around the world. We were already looking at a location in Champaign. We were looking at Tokyo. We were looking at London. We were thinking about cool cities around the US like Miami and DC and Atlanta and Austin. And unfortunately, COVID got in our way and we had to make the business decision to close those 2 spaces. But after several months and sort of getting through that challenging experience of closing a business, Zach and I both realized, well, we still have this brand. Like, let's see what we can do with it. And so that was sort of when we started chapter 2, I would say, of the Unfem business.
Was it always branded that when you had the
Yeah.
white label in-house? So you still have the same brand name, you're just taking it out.
Yep.
Amazing.
Same brand name. The packaging has, of course, evolved over time. Our form factor has changed. The wines have evolved. But always at the heart of the brand has been the name Unfem. And we're called that because all it takes is one woman, which Unfem means one woman in French. All it takes is one woman to shatter another glass ceiling. So
I love that.
you know,
That's
yeah,
a great name.
Yeah.
What was the moment? So when you're coming out of COVID now, no storage, you got the brand, and you're trying to go the distribution path, right? So did you guys already have connections into to go down this path? Like, how difficult was it for you guys to make that happen?
We originally distributed through friends of ours who ran an incredible wine distribution company called Martins, also women led. And Martins was known for importing really premium champagnes and burgundies. And so our friends, Greg and Kate, who are the current owners of Martins, were the ones who introduced us first to the producer who we worked with in Champaign. So they were initially our distributors in California, Illinois, and New York. And as I said, we were selling them at the restaurants and some boutique shops and
Yeah.
other friends' restaurants. But our ambitions at that point were pretty niche, pretty focused.
Yeah.
And when we closed the restaurants, now we were like, we really want to scale. We want to expand this brand and become, a bigger brand across the country. And so we were incredibly fortunate that we had a really, really lucky break, which was that we met the team from Delta Airlines. And I met them because they were out here in San Francisco meeting with my husband about Suvla doing the food for Delta One, the premium first class for Delta. And he is a huge Delta fan, as am I. We just
Yeah.
happened to get connected to the Delta team. And so I was involved with some of the wining and dining of their executive team. And he said to me, he was like, "Do you want to just show them your wines?" I was like, "Oh, I guess I should." And very right place, right time. Kind of, manufacturing your luck, but really truly a lucky break. And so I introduced them to the wines. They loved our mini bottles of our sparkling rosé. And every October, Delta features pink products in support of and in donation to breast cancer awareness through the Breast
Yeah.
Cancer Research Fund. And so they were like, "Do you want to do these for October?" And it was July. And at the time, we had made and sold about 1,500 cases of wine. We were very proud of ourselves. So that was a lot.
Sure.
And they were like, "We need 5,000 cases in 2 or 3 months." So I was like, "Oh my God, how are we going to do this?" And that's where luckily my brother is a masterful deal maker and operations guy. And so he figured out how to make it happen. And so that was our first big break as a customer. Delta remains one of our most important, long-lasting customers. We now have 4 wines on board every Delta plane in the US and many planes around the world. And what's so incredibly cool about Delta is we get exposed to such a premium customer, both a leisure customer and a business traveler. And people who love Delta are incredibly loyal to Delta. So the people who fly Delta, I hear all the time, "I've had this somewhere, I can't remember where." And I say, "Oh, do you fly Delta?" And they're like, "That's where I've seen it." So it's often our first touch point with our guests. And we also got 2 incredibly, again, sort of lucky additional accounts very early on that were really benchmark accounts. One was through the team at Marriott, a national placement by the glass at every Ritz-Carlton in the US. And so that was sort of helping us to anchor our by the glass program all around the country at really, really premium hotels. And then we also went into partnership with Neiman Marcus, and we create a co-branded collaborative sparkling mini bottle for them for all of their restaurants and the Rotunda in San Francisco, things like that. So it's cool. I talked to somebody today who was like, "Oh my gosh, I was at the Neiman's Cafe shopping with my daughters for the holiday a couple days ago, and we were drinking your wine." It's just such a fun thing. So we've really had sort of an unusual route to market that I would not say was guided by a business plan in the beginning, but which has been really focused on us partnering with the absolute best in category in as many interesting and innovative categories as we can think of. And so now this is part of our strategy. This is how we drive the business day to day. I almost think of us as a B2B business. We're not a SaaS sales organization, but we do really focus on business development at really premium
strategic partnerships
strategic partnerships. Exactly. And so for us, we also think about what are categories where we know people are still drinking. Obviously, all of us are reading all these stories about whether it's GLP-1s or people choosing to cut down on alcohol or moderate their alcohol consumption. But it is absolutely true that when people are on vacation, when they are at an arena or a stadium for a concert or a sporting event, when they are on a rooftop at a bar, when they're at a hotel, when they're on a plane, when they're in a plane lounge, like an airport lounge, all of those are places where people are still really enjoying drinking. And so we want to make sure that we're always showing up in those places.
You're always there.
Jen, I just came back from a birthday party in St. Bart's, and I will tell you the champagne business in the islands it's
thriving.
Well, I don't think anybody's cutting back there.
Yeah,
so whether
thriving.
it be your brands or Salon and Didier Dupont, which is he's become a friend, and it's terrific down there. If you were to maybe just from a basic standpoint, so men and women who love sparkling wine, who love champagne, prosecco, and you were just kind of laying out the basics for them where they felt more comfortable in a great restaurant, on a plane, etc. Sort of how do you think about ordering? What would your advice be?
Yeah, well, I would say first and foremost, don't be too intimidated. And if there is a sommelier there, they'll be happy to talk to you about what wines you might like. I think it's helpful to know, like, the very basics are champagne can only be made in Champagne, France. So Prosecco and Cava and California sparkling wines are not champagne. That's okay. They're all different styles, but they're just technically not champagne because champagne is protected like, let's say, Parmesan or feta. Actually,
Mhm.
feta is not. It should be, but it's not. And my husband's a Greek restaurateur. But some things that you can always look at that I think are kind of helpful cues. One would be if a champagne is either brut or extra brut. Brut means it's dry. Extra brut means it's extra dry. So basically no sugar added. And so if you like a higher acidity style, you want something that's really refreshing, really light, go for an extra brut. If you want something that's a little bit rounder and richer in appeal, go for a brut. Blanc de Blanc means white of white. So that would be a champagne made entirely of Chardonnay. Blanc de Noir is white of black, so of a black grape, which is Pinot Noir. The three most typical varietals in champagne are Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, and Pinot Meunier. So a lot of people will say, I don't ever drink Chardonnay, but I love champagne. Well, you're probably drinking a lot of Chardonnay. You're just doing it in an expression that is such that it's, beautiful and sparkling. And I would say the other big thing to know is sort of the difference between styles of the production of champagne versus a sparkling wine versus a wine in a can. So champagne, all of the fermentation to make the bubbles happens in the bottle. So the yeast is in the bottle. The yeast stays in the bottle for at least around 2 years and oftentimes much longer. And that's how you get that bready, yeasty, delicious, toasty flavor. There's another method called Charmat method, where that same yeast fermentation happens in a big tank. So you get a similar toastiness, but it's just not as complex. And you can get a much more affordable wine that way. And then anything that you would find in a can is what's called forced carbonated. So it's like, like a soda stream. And that's because the carbonation levels in a champagne method or a Charmat method would be too high in a can. And so they would explode. But you should be able to get a much more affordable sparkling wine in a can.
Interesting.
Won't have that lazy, yeasty quality going on, but you should be able to get a really high quality base wine that's been carbonated. And also, like, when you're drinking a canned sparkling wine, where are you? You're probably like at a concert or like on a boat or on the beach. Like, you don't need anything super serious. You want something light and
Right.
refreshing. Maybe it's a step up from the seltzers that are also available. Like,
Yeah.
who wants to drink those anymore? Not me. So it's like a nice, light, refreshing, easy drinking style of wine, most typically a sparkling wine in can.
Got it. So it's a step up from Zima is really what you're talking about.
Exactly.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
I saw a bunch of kids drinking high noons this weekend at Tuscaloosa, Alabama. So it's a step up from that.
The seltzer category is alive and well. Yes. But
For
I will
now, you're gunning for it though.
for now, I will
Can I
say,
can I ask you one question? So if to the extent that a female-led organization in a mostly male-dominated, historically, that is, on the champagne side, how did you do it? And what advice would you have of, someone who wants to really step out and do that themselves?
I think the most challenging component for any team looking to launch a wine or spirits brand is access to capital. It's a really, really capital intensive business, especially if you're scaling. Almost all of your resources go into cost of goods. You also will have a really high amount of cost associated with storage, particularly if you overproduce, which is probably the most common mistake I see people do, but it's one of those cart horse things. And, as you continue on in your business, you want to really carefully manage your inventory levels, particularly if freshness is something that matters for your product. Does for some, doesn't for all. I would say the legal complexities around compliance, because alcohol is a 3-tiered system, are important to know and understand before you get into business. It's not a very sexy.
Can you explain that, the 3-tier system?
Yeah. So because we live in a post-prohibition America, there are 3 tiers. There's production, there's distribution, and then there's retail. And you cannot live in 2 of those 3 at one time. So you can own a restaurant, but you can't distribute and produce product. There is a rare exception made where you can sometimes make product that you sell only at your own restaurant, but you cannot own a restaurant and a brand at the same time. You cannot be a distributor and own a brand. People use all kinds of legal
Interesting.
structures, sometimes with
Yeah.
their families to obfuscate this a
Mhm.
little bit. But
Yeah.
if you're being truly compliant, and like companies are taken down all the time because it's called the tied house rules, where the idea of like tying the houses together literally to
Yeah.
be a one system is something that was broken apart during Prohibition. So you have to work with a distributor, with the exception of there are 6 states, if you're small enough that you can self-distribute. That's a way that a lot of people start, whether
And
you
it's
work.
in California's one, correct?
California is one of them.
Yeah.
That's right. So you can have your own trucking, you can have your own drop-offs. It's obviously expensive and labor
Yeah.
intensive and all of those things, but for some people starting out, it makes sense. And the distributors are really, really oriented towards optimizing their books, I would say, at this period in time, because a lot of them got consolidated. RNDC and Southern Wine and Spirits are the 2 biggest. And they have both gone through a lot of periods of acquiring other distributors in other states. Each state has its own set of rules, and you have to have people who know and understand those rules. You have to list your products with both the federal government and with every single state you're doing business in. And your direct to consumer channel, if you choose to integrate it into your business, has a different set of rules than the wines in distribution. So
Wow.
none of the legal stuff is
Yeah.
fun. And that's why a lot of people start in one state and then
Yeah.
slowly radiate out. We, by accident, became a national brand overnight because of our relationships with Delta and the Ritz-Carlton and Neiman Marcus and a handful of other great partners. But what it means is that you'll sometimes be in a state in the US where you're familiar with us, you're drinking our wines in cool, what we call on-premise locations. So places
Yeah.
where you drink on the premises, and you won't be able to find us in store because we don't have like a salesperson in that state to get us into stores. But most people I know in the business have started small and have sort of radiated out.
Yeah. Out of curiosity, because Delta was your first big national client, were they on the hook for the national laws? Because in theory, they're distributing it. Like, did you just have to in
No,
Atlanta? Basically, you're selling to an Atlanta corp
it,
who's distributing it, or you're on the hook for
we're on the hook. It's like
interesting.
our license. We could lose our ability to produce and sell wine. The
Yeah.
only case in which I've ever seen somebody lose their license is if they own a restaurant and that restaurant is selling a lot of wine that is being produced in a different, like if they're being
Yeah.
sort of duplicitous about that. There was a very famous case of Mario Batali when he had Italy,
Mhm.
and they got called out by the ABC, and they had to disentangle their businesses somehow because he was both producing wine, importing and distributing wine, and selling it at all of the Eataly's and all of his restaurants, which is not allowed. But it's kind of crazy when you think about it. Like,
Oh
if
yeah.
you're a dairy farmer and you own land,
That's what I was just going to ask. I'm
yeah,
like, do you guys know why? Like, what's magical? I mean, this seems like it's an archaic law that I don't. Maybe somehow it made sense, but you would think of a monopoly law if it was a monopoly concern, but I don't think that's where the original concern
Well,
was.
it came out of prohibition, making sure that racketeers and uh, folks
Money laundering. Yeah.
the folks that used to control liquor
Yeah.
distribution that owned it all, that
Got it.
they were put in a box.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense.
and now there are a lot of deeply entrenched interests insofar as states get a lot of tax money from this. And then also the distributors don't want their tier to be eliminated. And the distributors are the ones who are the
Yeah.
biggest and wealthiest players all
Right.
across the industry. Even when you look at the largest books of business, when it comes to companies like Constellation or Gallo or things like that, the distributors are still more powerful than any of the individual brands. It's wild. Yeah.
That is wild.
So if we want to experience Unfem, how do we do that? Where do
Yeah.
we get? Obviously, I'm flying Delta I'm flying Delta in 2 days.
Great.
So
Yep.
so
Where
what
are you going? Anywhere fun?
I'm headed for a board meeting. I'm going to Phoenix. So I'm going from
Well,
Miami to Phoenix.
oh, great. Well, yeah, you can definitely drink us on board Delta. We're available at a lot of hotel groups. So we have big partnerships with Marriott, Hilton, Kimpton, graduate hotels, etc. So
Okay.
a lot of times people find us there. We're at a lot of arenas and stadiums, and we do have great retail partnerships all across the country. The easiest thing actually is just to look at our website and see there's a where to shop section. And then you can also, of course, order directly from our website
Hmm.
anywhere in the US. But California is a great state, for example, for us in terms of retail distribution. We're available at everything from Total Wine and Spirits to Safeway to Amazon Fresh, those kinds of places. And we're continuing to grow our retail footprint every day. We have not really historically focused on retail. We've really focused on creating experiences for people when they're out and about and having fun. But it
Hmm.
will be a big focus for us this year and beyond.
Great.
Yep.
I heard rumblings about a story of you trying to start a pool club. Is this true?
Oh yeah, that's right. Um, yeah, it's kind of a wild story. I mean, talk about government overreach. We can really get into it here. We you know, it's an interesting time for the wine industry. And I live in Sonoma. I lived in New York for about 10 years, and then San Francisco for about 10 years. And my husband and I moved up to Sonoma 3 years ago. We love it. We are so in love with Sonoma. We have an incredible community. And one of the things that we've really noticed is that there are a lot of very traditional wineries where customers can have very traditional wine tasting experiences. But the very small handful that do slightly more innovative things are the ones that I've noticed are attracting a younger customer. And in our goal to become the number one canned wine company in the US, my goal is to attract as many younger customers to our brand. We're happy for older customers to drink our wines, but of course, when we think about who's most likely to be open-minded about canned wines, it's absolutely younger customers who
Yep.
are already used to drinking seltzer and who also they don't sneeze at the idea of a screw top bottle, and they also don't think that it's like insane to drink canned wines.
Yep.
So I thought a lot about if I were in my early 20s or 30s, what would be the kinds of experiences I would want in wine country? And what I know it would not be is going to a traditional winery with a tasting experience that's $150 where you sit down in a really quiet room with like
Yeah.
beautiful glassware and a tasting map and lots of wines that I can't even pronounce the names of. And I'm sniffing and I'm swirling and I'm looking at the tasting map. Like that's not what I would have wanted to do in my 20s. Um, what I would love to do is like go to a pool and drink wine. And, uh, wine can still be the central activity and the central
A
thing that
hundred
you're
percent.
buying. And a lot of the pools in Sonoma and Napa are at amazing hotels, but those hotels are often like $1,000 a night,
Yeah.
$1,500 a night. And most of them don't sell day passes. Um, and none of them have like a vibey vibe.
Yeah.
Like there
The
are
pools. Yeah.
many, many beautiful pools in Napa and
Yeah.
Sonoma, but it's not known as a region where you go to like party. And
Right.
that's not really what we wanted either. But so I found this incredible piece of property about 5 minutes from my house that had been on the market for about a year. It's a winery that is operated right now by a really famous Pinot Noir producer called Patson Hall. And it is a beautiful 16-acre property, 11 acres of estate Pinot, 1 acre of Chardonnay. As I said, we do all champagne varietals. So Pinot and Chardonnay are very important to us. It's in the Carneros AVA, a very important AVA for both sparkling production and also optimal for Pinot Noir and Chardonnay with sort of a European expression. And this beautiful 8,000 square foot space that had sort of a Mediterranean vibe
Yeah.
that I was like, I can envision us putting a pool here and making this a space where people can come up from the city. And it's only 45 minutes from the Golden Gate Bridge. It's just south of
Wow.
Sonoma Square.
Yeah.
And our plan was to make this space look and feel a little bit like the Beverly Hills Hotel
Hmm.
vibe with a little bit of south of France in there as well. And so sort
Yeah.
of vintage throwback, but then also some Mediterranean. And to create a food and beverage program that was really centralized around our sparkling wines in bottle and then also buckets of cans by the pool. And
Love
we
it.
put a deck together and started shopping this around to investors. And we got a tremendous amount of investor interest. And so before I put an offer in on this space, I went to the county and asked, can we do this? And I met with the woman who's the specialist for wineries. And she said, I don't see why not. Like, what's the difference between drinking wine in a pool versus on a picnic blanket? I'm like, yeah, exactly. So then we go to do our fundraise. We raise, a huge amount of money. and we're ready to do it. We negotiate with the sellers, we settle on a price. The day that we had a 30-day window to do our diligence. And so I had two contingencies. One was if we financing contingency, and the second was true confirmation from permitting that we could get the permits through.
Yep.
So I got the pool guy in there. We drew up the pool. We made it official. Me and the pool guy go in, and he is at the county like twice a week getting pools permitted. And we walk in there, and a more senior planner was I never got to meet behind the scenes, came back with a ruling over email that no, absolutely, we could not do it. And I was like, can we fight this? Like, is there any reason? Why can't we do this? So Coppola has a pool that's very famous in Sonoma County, and they had a one-time exception. Nobody knows why. And in my opinion, everybody should be able to put in pools. I think they would be
100%.
incredibly beneficial to Sonoma and Napa County for bringing more tourism up to the county.
Yeah.
Which is really, really struggling right now in terms of visitorship. And I said, can I fight this? Like, what can I do? And they said, you can, but it's going to take several years and likely hundreds of thousands of dollars. And we will most likely tell you no. And they said, what you can do is lobby for a change in the general plan, which is up for review every 20 years. And it's a 2-year process to get it changed. So right now we're in the midst of all of that. So I am going to get involved with that process, but the likelihood that it's going to change is extremely low. But I can't tell you how many people have been sort of up in arms about this. The Chronicle did a big front page article of the San Francisco Chronicle.
Oh, that's awesome.
Both above and below the fold, because the wine industry is in such a challenging moment right now, and that we need to be able to work with the county to think of new and interesting and innovative ways to get people up there. And they're truly, you can drink wine in a hotel that has a vineyard. Is a home next door that has the same plot of land and vineyard and a pool. They said that we could have done, get this, hunting, fishing, ziplining, and paintball.
You're joking. How does that make sense?
No.
So it's not a class issue. It's not that they're thinking that you're declassing them. They're okay with a paintball zipline park wine tasting.
Jen, getting to know you and your tenacity and your perseverance, I'm betting you're going to get a pool club done.
Oh yeah.
We're working.
100%.
The question is when. But so if we wanted to do, I'm going to ask you a couple of fun questions here. So if you were to, let's start in California. If you were going to put a group of winemakers on Mount Rushmore with you, of course. So Unfem's definitely one of the spots. But if you've got another 3 spots or 4 spots, what would you put up there with you?
Contemporaries or
or all time?
Well, I'm going to put Robert Mondavi because he's the one who really put Napa on the map all across the globe. And I never had the opportunity to meet him, but Mondavi is probably the most famous and most important wine amongst all wines in the United States. I would probably I'll pick 2 contemporaries, although they're not that well known, but they're still amazing. So I would put Scott Schultz of a brand called Jolie Lade, which is a really amazing. I wouldn't call them a natural producer in that they make natty wines. They don't. All of their wines are very clean, but in the winery they do a lot of things that are really centrally focused on great natural expressions of unusual grape varietals. So varietals like Trousseau Gris or things like that. And then I'd also put a woman named Martha Stuman, who is a contemporary of mine, who she does natural wines. And she is, I think, just such a complete badass when it comes to women winemakers. She's really one to watch in the future. And she makes beautiful wines of many different styles, very focused on great expressions of Northern California winemaking, and one of the coolest women in wine that I know.
Okay, I've got one other question. So
go for it.
Okay, we flew to Paris. We're going to go to Champagne, and you've got your husband John. He and his wife Kimberly. Jen and I are there. We're going to go out and see. We're going to go see 2 or 3 Champagne places, winemakers. Where do you go?
Okay, well, that one's easy. So we are going to Krug, and it's going to take us months to get this appointment, but we're going to get it. And we're going to go for not only walking through and experiencing the coves and the grounds, but we're going to go for, I don't know if they still do it, but when I was there last, they did it. They had this amazing CEO, this woman, Maggie, I can't remember her last name, but she's amazing. And she was really focused on the intersection of music and champagne. And so they did this partnership with Bang& Olufsen,
Oh, wow.
and you could sit
That's
in
nice.
this
cool.
room. Oh my God, so amazing. And they
Yeah.
had these like flights of Krug, and they would play different music. When it was everything from like opera to Lady Gaga on these like Bang& Olufsen speakers. And they're
So it
playing
was music
while you're
pairings
drinking.
it's like music pairings with the flight.
Yes. Yes.
That's
Well,
incredible.
that's
Yeah.
awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yes.
I love that.
Okay,
Absolutely.
so we're at Krug. They're doing some cool stuff over there.
Yeah.
Where else are we going?
And then we're going to Julie Medvi's house of Gonnet Medvi, our partner who had made
Right.
our champagnes. And she would take us to all of the beautiful vineyards that they work in. And then they would bring us back to their house for an incredible dinner at their kitchen. And inevitably, they would find out everyone's birthdays, and they would open up birth year wines for all of us.
Fabulous.
Wow.
And I'm sure that we would be eating caviar and insane cheeses and a beautiful roast something, and it would be a long night. So
What
we would
about
not be driving.
have you been to Ruinart or Salon?
Absolutely. I've been to Ruinart. I have not been to Salon, but Ruinart is incredible. They have UNESCO World Heritage Site coves that survived World War II, and they're underground, and they are absolutely stunning. And that's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful property. Have you been to Champagne?
No, I have not, but we've been invited to go there. We're going to go maybe with some friends. Ruinart is celebrating. I'm going to totally crucify this. They're celebrating 300 years or 400
Oh,
years and
yeah.
600 years or something like that in a year or two, and they're going to have a full year celebration.
Oh my
And
God. How cool.
they're going to go nuts. So we've got some friends that only drink Ruinart and really open us up to that.
There is definitely like a cohort of people who are Ruinart diehards,
Yeah,
and they very famously only make Blanc de Blanc champagnes.
yeah.
And they're so special and so delicious, and just a beautiful, beautiful place to visit. I'm
Well,
jealous.
we need to do that
Yeah.
trip. We
Yeah.
need to
let's do it.
100%.
definitely do that trip.
Yeah.
How do we have your products down here in South Florida? Is there
Yes.
anything here
Yeah,
in
we're all
Palm Beach?
around. We're
Okay.
all around South Florida. We've got great retail partnerships in South Florida. A lot of cool hotels and yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
Awesome. So we'll check it out. So Jen, give us a couple quick speed round here to close this out.
Yeah.
What biggest advice you would give to a woman who has got a passion, sees an opportunity, but at the same time, we all know on the entrepreneurial journey, you also have the risk and the fear of stepping into that arena. So what do you say, whether it was your daughter, whether it was a woman you came across on a Delta flight drinking a beautiful can?
I think that I would encourage this person to Google a video. And the video is, I don't know exactly how you'd Google it, but it's basically like music, art, stairs. It's this guy climbing this set of stairs. I'll look it up and I'll send it to you so you can put it in the show
Okay.
notes.
Yeah.
And it's this artist, and he sets up this installation, I think in a mall actually. And he's going up these stairs, and there's this music playing, and he goes up a stair and he falls down, and there's a trampoline. And then he jumps back up, and then he goes up a couple more and he falls down. And then he goes up and he falls down. And then he's back down lower on the stairs. And then he keeps going, And then it seems impossible that he will ever reach the top. But
Yeah.
no spoilers, but it has.
Yeah.
And to me, it's the perfect analogy for what the entrepreneurial journey is about. I will say I feel incredibly lucky that my co-founder is my brother, who I love and adore so much. We have very different skills, but also very overlapping skills. And we keep ourselves sane. And there are many days when either one of us is like, I can't do this anymore. But I'm lucky to have him to say, keep going. And I do the same with him. And I'm also very, very lucky to be married to an entrepreneur who is almost like a third business partner in the business. And we talk about business and work all the time.
Yeah.
And having a support system at home, I think, is incredibly important.
Yeah. 100% agree. What are you doing to feed yourself right now from feed your soul, your brain that helps you? What are you reading? What are you consuming? Like, what is your routine
John,
that you do to
John,
be better?
John, other than the Legends of the Arena,
Other
That's
than
right.
obviously,
other
That's
than
right.
obviously.
other than that, of course.
That's right. I am a voracious reader and podcast listener. I probably read about a book a week. I do it every morning
Good for
before we
you.
take the dog out for a walk. We have a good morning routine, which is wake up, read, do Wordle and connections and, all of those. And then we take the
Yep.
dog for a walk in the vineyards across the street and then come back and sort of start our day.
Now, what is Wordle? Sorry.
Oh, Wordle is a game in the New York Times, and
Okay.
you can play it in teams. You can play it individually. We play it individually, but my husband and I do it together,
Okay.
and it's so much fun. It's good. It's good for
Yeah.
fending off Alzheimer's and also waking your brain up. And
Okay.
Yeah.
Very
yeah,
cool.
great game. But the book that I read most recently, that's a nonfiction book that I loved, is a book by Susie Welch, who was the former editor-in-chief of the Harvard Business Review. She was Jack Welch's wife.
Life, yeah.
She's, talk about an amazing, amazing entrepreneur. So her book is called Becoming You, and it is based on her class at NYU Stern that she started teaching 3 years ago, I think, coming out of COVID. And it was supposed to be just like this small seminar, and it has turned into the most popular class at all of NYU. And it's all about identifying what are your natural aptitudes, also identifying what are your values. So not your virtues, not honesty, caring, giving back. It's like, what do you actually value? You value a stable home, you value your family, you value making money, you value living in a beautiful environment. And then you match those two things up, and then you see how closely in alignment you're living to your values and close in terms of your aptitudes. So that's an incredible book, and she's
Love
been on
that.
a lot of podcasts and things like that. So Becoming You is my most currently recommended book.
Well, that's great. Do you ever go on campus and lecture? I'm involved. My alma mater, DePaul University in Greencastle, Indiana. We have a new business school, and we love bringing fantastic people to ignite the
Thank
kid
you.
Yeah.
and the students, to give them inspiration, because they just need some inspiration. How'd you
Yeah.
do it? When you fell down, that's why we're doing this podcast. When you fell down, you struggled, you were going to quit, and this world's filled with, social media. Everybody looks perfect and their lives are perfect and mine's not. So if you ever do that and you'd be interested in that, we could certainly have a conversation. Do you ever do that?
Oh, thank you. Would love to. Yeah, I've done it a handful of times, and I really enjoy it. I loved being in school and loved learning from people. Every year I teach a sort of business seminar to women entrepreneurs. It's just a one day, but through the James Beard Foundation at one of their annual conferences. And then I've done a little bit at some universities around the country as one-offs. But I always wanted to go to Harvard Business School, and I think I'm like sort of too old to go now.
Yeah.
And so, maybe I'll get to.
Do you know my
guest
friend Edna Morris? She used to be the CEO at the foundation there.
Oh, cool. Very
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, she's a
Yeah,
restaurant.
that's awesome. Yeah.
She's a restaurateur.
Jen,
Yeah.
my last question for you. What's the next big thing for you? Like in the business, could be the business in you, the big swing, the next arena in the arena that, not the easy one, not easy beating, I want to get into this new distribution channel, but what's on the vision for ahead that you want to conquer?
Well, last year I had 3 goals. One was to get into the White House, one was Yankee Stadium, and one was space. So we got our space partner, which is Blue Origin. So we're the sparkling wine partner to Blue Origin. And all of the women who went on that women's flight were gifted a co-branded Magnum from all of us.
Amazing.
It was a bit of a wild ride on that one. So that was pretty cool. I'm going to hold off on the political side for the moment, but I still would love to get into Yankee Stadium. I'd love to come up with a list of about 50 cultural institutions that I think are the coolest and most exciting ones across the country.
Yeah.
We're at our hometown arena, the Chase Center. We're at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. We're at a lot of Broadway theaters, but I'd love to be at like Lincoln Center and the Sphere in Vegas and all of those kinds of places. Because frankly, I just want to go uh, and do some entertaining. Uh,
The sphere is badass.
I haven't been yet.
Oh my
I
god.
don't have a business
Me
reason to go.
neither.
We saw the Eagles there, and we missed you
That would have
too.
been
It's yeah,
awesome.
yeah. Well, we gotta get
Amazing.
it there because they're certainly serving up some sparkling there.
Oh
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
absolutely,
It's a
absolutely.
good entree. I mean, that's a good
Yeah,
entree to get into anywhere, Jen. That's like,
yeah,
it's a good business. That's a good business perk,
Yeah.
you
Oh
know,
yeah.
just to start an awesome wine company to
Absolutely.
go get hookups.
There you go.
yeah.
Well, Jen, it's been fantastic. Thank you
Yes.
for joining us. We are very here to support you and to be part of your journey in this one little interview and to hear your story. And it is extremely exciting, no doubt going to be very inspiring to every person that gets to listen to this. And kudos to you and your husband and your brother for all the endeavors. But please, everybody, check out Unfem Wines. Check them out, support them. Look on their website to find out where near you. You can go get them at a brick and mortar or retail, and definitely on Delta Airlines and every sporting venue. If it's not there, ask for it and get them to demand it. But thank you so much, Jen.
Yeah.
Very, very excited for you.
Thanks for coming on. Inspiring. Thank you.
Very
Thank you
inspiring.
guys. Thank you.
Yeah, awesome.